Have you ever imagined being called by Jesus to completely change your life? That's how the journey of James, son of Zebedee, began. A simple fisherman who became one of the closest apostles to Christ. Welcome to Biblia Emcores, the channel that turns biblical stories into experiences of faith, hope, and belonging. Here, every video is an opportunity to get closer to God and to the community, especially for those seeking meaning and renewal amid life's challenges. Get ready to embark on an exciting narrative full of surprises, reflections, and profound lessons that still inspire millions around the world. The story of the Apostle James begins on the tranquil waters of the Sea of Galilee, where he worked alongside his brother John and his father Zebedee. James's life was simple, marked by hard work, family, and the daily search for sustenance. But everything changed when Jesus passed by and called James and John to be his disciples. That call, made with few words but infinite love, would forever change James's life. From the very first moment, he showed himself to be courageous, loyal, and willing to follow Jesus, even without knowing exactly what the future held. James, together with Peter and John, became one of the closest apostles to Jesus. He witnessed miracles, heard deep teachings, and participated in significant moments such as the Transfiguration and the prayer at Gethsemane. His faith was strong, but he also faced doubts and fears, just like each of us. James's story reminds us that following Jesus is not an easy path, but it is full of meaning, love, and hope. Throughout this video, you will follow every step of James's journey, from his calling to his martyrdom. You will discover how he faced challenges, overcame fears, and became an example of courage and surrender. This narrative is for you who seek inspiration, want to renew your faith, or simply want to feel part of a community that welcomes and strengthens. If you have ever felt the desire to change, to start over, or to find a greater purpose, James's story will touch your heart. It shows us that God calls simple people to great missions, and that each of us can make a difference in the world. Just trust and keep moving forward. Now, I invite you to subscribe to the Biblia Emcores channel. By subscribing, you strengthen our community, receive messages of faith and hope, and become part of a group that believes in the power of prayer and love. Subscribe now and come walk with us on this journey of faith. The story of the Apostle James takes us to a time and place marked by profound transformations. To understand the importance of James, it is essential to dive into the context in which he lived and the circumstances that shaped his journey. James, son of Zebedee, was a native of Galilee, a region known for its natural beauty, but also for being viewed with some prejudice by the religious elites of the time. Galilee was inhabited by simple, hard-working people who lived off trade, agriculture, and especially fishing. It was precisely in this environment that James grew up, learning from an early age the value of work and perseverance. James was part of a family of fishermen. His father, Zebedee, was a man known and respected in the community, and his mother, Salome, was a woman of faith who accompanied Jesus in his mission. James had a brother named John, with whom he shared not only blood, but also the call to follow Jesus. The two were known for their strong and courageous temperament, characteristics that earned them the nickname Sons of Thunder, given by the Master himself. This fraternal relationship and the closeness to Jesus deeply marked James's life, making him a central figure among the apostles. James's story is recorded in the Gospels, mainly in Matthew, Mark, and Luke in the New Testament. The calling of James and John is narrated in Matthew 4:21-22, when Jesus, passing by the Sea of Galilee, sees the two brothers mending their nets in the boat with their father and calls them to follow him. The response of James and John was immediate. They left the boat, their father, and the nets, and followed Jesus. This act of faith and courage illustrates James's willingness to give up his known life to embrace a greater mission. The historical context of the time was one of oppression, uncertainty, and hope. The people of Israel lived under the rule of the Roman Empire, facing tax demands, social injustices, and the search for a liberator. Many expected a political Messiah who would free Israel from the Roman yoke, but Jesus presented a new path based on love, mercy, and inner transformation. James, like the other disciples, was challenged to understand this new way of life, which required faith, humility, and surrender. Throughout the narrative, James appears as one of the apostles closest to Jesus, participating in significant moments such as the Transfiguration, Matthew 17:1-8, the raising of Jairus' daughter, Mark 5:37, and the prayer at Gethsemane, Matthew 26:36-46. His presence in these events reveals the trust that Jesus placed in him and the importance of James for the formation of the group of apostles. James's life is an invitation for us to reflect on our own choices and on what we are willing to leave behind in the name of faith. Like him, we are often called to step out of our comfort zone, face challenges, and trust in God even when the path seems uncertain. James's story reminds us that God calls ordinary people to extraordinary missions, and that each of us can be an instrument of transformation in the world. If you are looking for inspiration, a new meaning for life, or simply want to feel part of a community that welcomes and strengthens, James's story is for you. Leave a comment below, sharing how this narrative touches your heart, and share your experiences. Your story can inspire others and further strengthen our community of faith. Comment now and be part of this current of hope and unity. The life of James, son of Zebedee, took a completely new direction from the moment Jesus passed by the shore of Galilee and invited him to be his disciple. In that instant, James left behind not only the boat and the nets, but also the security of a predictable life, embracing a mission full of uncertainty, but also of infinite possibilities. Together with his brother John, James became part of the group closest to Jesus, forming with Peter a trio of apostles who would witness some of the most remarkable moments in the Master's life. The relationship between James, John, and Peter was marked by trust, friendship, and the desire to learn. They shared not only the joys, but also the difficulties of the journey. James, known for his strong and courageous temperament, was also deeply loyal to Jesus and his companions. This loyalty was manifested in small daily gestures, such as helping the other disciples, sharing what little they had, and always being ready to listen to Jesus' teachings. One of the first great moments experienced by James was the transfiguration of Jesus. On that day, James, John, and Peter climbed a mountain with Jesus, and before their eyes the Master was transfigured. His face shone like the sun, and his garments became white as light. Moses and Elijah appeared beside Jesus, talking with him about his mission. James was deeply impressed by that experience, which strengthened his faith and prepared him for the challenges that were yet to come. Besides the transfiguration, James was also present at other important moments, such as the raising of Jairus' daughter. On that occasion, Jesus chose James, John, and Peter to accompany him to Jairus' house, where a girl had died. Jesus took the child's hand and brought her back to life in front of the astonished eyes of the disciples. For James, that was a clear sign of God's power and the importance of fully trusting in Jesus, even in the most difficult situations. Daily life with Jesus deeply transformed James. He learned to look at people with compassion, to value simplicity, and to always seek God's will. James also faced moments of doubt and fear, such as when Jesus predicted his own death and resurrection. On that occasion, James and the other disciples were confused and frightened, but Jesus comforted them, teaching them the importance of faith and trust in God. James' relationship with Jesus was one of deep respect and admiration. He saw in the Master Not only a leader, but also a friend and guide, someone who was always willing to teach, correct, and love. James also developed a special relationship with the other apostles, especially his brother John and Peter. Together, they formed a kind of core within the group of disciples, sharing experiences, doubts, and dreams. James's life, therefore, was marked by challenges, learning, and many surprises. He learned to live with uncertainty, to deal with his own limitations, and to trust in God even when the path seemed dark. For James, following Jesus meant giving up certain certainties, but also experiencing a joy and peace that only God can offer. If you have ever faced unexpected changes or felt afraid in the face of the unknown, James's story can inspire you to move forward with courage and hope. Life is made of challenges, but also of opportunities for growth and transformation. Like this video if you identified with today's message and help strengthen our community of faith. By liking, you show that you believe in the power of prayer and love, and encourage others to walk with us on this journey. Like now and be part of this current of hope and renewal. As James followed Jesus, he was constantly challenged to mature in faith and understand the true meaning of the Master's mission. The climax of his journey began to take shape when Jesus began to speak openly about his imminent suffering, death, and resurrection. These words left James and the other disciples deeply shaken. Despite having already witnessed miracles and heard profound teachings, the idea of losing Jesus was frightening and incomprehensible to them. James, used to acting with courage and determination, found himself facing new feelings, fear, doubt, and at the same time, a silent hope in God's power. One of the most intense moments experienced by James was the prayer at Gethsemane. On that night, Jesus chose James, John, and Peter to accompany him in a moment of deep anguish. While Jesus prayed, sweating blood from so much distress, James and the other disciples struggled against sleep and sadness. That experience showed James that following Jesus was not just about witnessing miracles and teachings, but also sharing in the Master's suffering and surrender. Even without fully understanding what was happening, James remained by Jesus' side, albeit imperfectly, demonstrating his loyalty and his desire to be close to his friend and guide. The arrest of Jesus was another crucial moment in James's life. When the soldiers came to arrest Jesus, all the disciples, including James, fled in fear. This episode revealed human fragility and showed that even the bravest can falter in the face of danger. James felt the weight of that decision, but he also learned that Jesus' love was greater than any mistake or weakness. After the resurrection, when Jesus appeared to the disciples, James was restored and strengthened in his faith, understanding that God's forgiveness and mercy are infinite. From the resurrection onward, James became a leader among the apostles. He preached courageously in Jerusalem, announcing the good news of Jesus Christ and witnessing the transforming power of the gospel. James faced persecution, threats, and challenges, but he never abandoned his mission. His faith, once marked by an impetuous temperament, matured and became a deep trust in God. He learned to put the Father's will above his own desires, and to trust that, even in the face of death, life would triumph. James's martyrdom was the apex of his journey. According to the book of Acts of the Apostles, James was arrested and sentenced to death by order of King Herod Agrippa III. Even in the face of the threat of death, James remained firm in his faith, not denying Jesus. His courage inspired many Christians of the time and continues to inspire people today. James's martyrdom was not just a tragic end, but the ultimate expression of his surrender and love for Christ. He became the first of the apostles to give his life for the faith, showing that a true disciple is willing to do anything, even sacrifice, for love of Jesus. James's story teaches us that the path of faith is made of ups and downs, moments of courage and weakness, victories and defeats. But above all, it is a path of hope, because God is always present, renewing our strength and leading us to a full life. James, who began his journey as a simple fisherman, ended as an example of faith, courage, and surrender. If you have ever felt fear, doubt, or weakness in your faith journey, James's story can inspire you to move forward with hope. Share this video with someone who needs courage and renewal. By sharing, you strengthen our community, help others find comfort, and show that together we are stronger. Share now and be part of this current of love and hope. The journey of the Apostle James came to its end with martyrdom, but his legacy lives on to this day. James, who began as a simple fisherman from Galilee, became one of the pillars of the early church, leaving an example of faith, courage, and surrender. His story does not end with death, but continues in the lives of all who are inspired by his witness. Reflecting on the destiny of each relevant character in this narrative, we can see how God uses ordinary people to accomplish great deeds and spread hope throughout the world. James, son of Zebedee, was the first of the apostles to be martyred. He was arrested and killed by order of King Herod Agrippa I, as recorded in Acts 12:2. His death was not in vain. On the contrary, it became a symbol of courage and faithfulness to Jesus. James faced martyrdom with the same determination with which he followed the Master, showing that love for Christ overcomes any fear or suffering. His brother John followed a different path. John became one of the great leaders of the church, author of the gospel that bears his name, the letters of the New Testament, and the book of Revelation. He was the only apostle not to die a martyr, living to an advanced age and continuing to proclaim the gospel with passion and wisdom. John, like James, was an example of love and dedication to Jesus. Peter, the other member of the trio closest to Jesus, also had a remarkable destiny. He became the leader of the church in Jerusalem, preached boldly, and like James, faced persecution and suffering. Peter was crucified upside down in Rome according to tradition because he did not consider himself worthy to die in the same way as Jesus. His life was marked by ups and downs, but always guided by love for the Master. Jesus himself, the center of the story, completed his mission with his death on the cross and his resurrection, opening the way for the salvation of humanity. His presence continued to inspire and strengthen the disciples even after his ascension into heaven. Jesus is the supreme example of love, humility, and surrender, and his life is the foundation of the Christian faith. Zebedee, the father of James and John, and Salome, their mother, are not mentioned after the beginning of Jesus' ministry, but we can imagine that they followed their son's mission closely, supporting them in prayer and with love. They represent all parents who, even in silence, sustain their children's faith and encourage them to follow God's path. The other disciples went different ways, spreading throughout the world to proclaim the gospel. Some were martyred, others faced persecution, but all left a legacy of faith and hope. James's story reminds us that each of us has an important role in building the kingdom of God, whether through great gestures or small acts of love. The great message of the story of the Apostle James is that God calls ordinary people to extraordinary missions. He does not seek perfection, but an open heart, a willingness to learn, and the courage to face challenges. James, with his fears, doubts, and mistakes, became an example of transformation and surrender. His life teaches us that faith is not the absence of difficulties, but the certainty that God is with us at every step, renewing our strength and guiding us to a full life. If you have ever felt small in the face of life's challenges, remember James's example. God does not look at who you are, but at who you can become with him. His story can inspire you to face your fears, overcome your doubts, and trust in God's love, even in the face of the greatest adversities. Now, I invite you to subscribe to the Biblia Mcores channel. By subscribing, you strengthen our community, receive messages of faith and hope, and become part of a group that believes in the power of prayer and love. Subscribe now and come walk with us on this journey of faith, welcome, and hope. The story of the Apostle James is not just a tale from the past, but a living source of inspiration for all who seek meaning, courage, and hope in modern life. Looking at James's journey, we realize that many of the challenges he faced are still present in our daily lives. Fears, doubts, uncertainties, the search for a greater purpose, and the desire to make a difference in the world. James shows us that faith is not a path free of difficulties, but a journey of growth, learning, and constant transformation. In today's world, marked by rapid changes, crises, and insecurities, James's life teaches us the importance of trusting God, even when everything seems uncertain. Like him, we are often called to step out of our comfort zone, to leave behind what is familiar, and to embrace new challenges. It could be a job change, a family crisis, an illness, or simply the desire to start over. In all these moments, James's story reminds us that God is with us, strengthening and guiding us, even when we cannot see the way forward. James also teaches us about the value of community. He did not walk alone. He had his brother John, Peter, the other disciples, and above all Jesus, by his side. In modern life, loneliness is one of the greatest challenges faced by many people. Feeling part of a group, a family of faith, is essential for facing difficulties and celebrating achievements. James's story inspires us to seek welcome, to share our pains and joys, and to support one another, forming a true network of love and hope. Another great lesson from James' life is the importance of courage in the face of adversity. He faced persecution, fears, and even death, but never abandoned his faith. In our daily lives, we face challenges that can discourage us: financial problems, illnesses, losses, injustices. James's story reminds us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward even when the heart trembles. God gives us strength to face every battle, and every victory, no matter how small, is a reason to celebrate. James also teaches us about humility and growth. He began his journey with a strong and impetuous temperament, but over time he learned to listen, to correct his mistakes, and to put God's will above his own desires. In modern life, we are constantly tempted to seek success at any cost, to compete with others, and to value what we have more than who we are. James's story invites us to seek humility, to recognize our limitations, and to grow in wisdom and love. James's faith was tested many times, but he never gave up. He learned to trust God even when everything seemed lost. In our daily lives, we face moments of discouragement, tiredness, and doubt. James's story inspires us not to give up, to keep hope alive, and to trust that God has a plan for each of us, even when we cannot see the end of the tunnel. Finally, James's life shows us that love is the greatest legacy we can leave. He gave his life for love of Jesus and the gospel. In our daily lives, we are called to love in concrete ways, helping our neighbor, being supportive, welcoming those who are suffering, forgiving those who have hurt us. James's love was not just in words, but in actions, and it is this example that we must follow. If you are facing challenges, feeling alone, or seeking a new meaning for life, James' story can be a beacon of hope for you. Like this video, if you identified with today's message and help strengthen our community of faith. By liking, you show that you believe in the power of prayer and love and encourage others to walk with us on this journey. Like now and be part of this current of hope and renewal. Now comes the most special moment of this video, the moment when you can open your heart to God in prayer. I invite you to find a quiet place where you can relax and feel comfortable talking to the Father. It can be in your room, in the living room, in the garden, or even in a special corner of your home. Take a deep breath, close your eyes for a few moments and allow yourself this encounter with God, free from distractions, free from hurry, free from demands. This is your moment, the moment to renew your faith, to place before God all your pains, your doubts, your dreams, and your hopes. Just like James, who learned to trust God at every stage of his life, you too can experience the strength and welcome that only the Lord can offer. As you prepare, remember, God is always ready to listen to you. He knows every detail of your heart, every thought, every emotion. You don't need perfect words. You don't need complicated rituals. Just be sincere, open yourself completely, and let God's love fill your life. If you wish, you can repeat this prayer with me, phrase by phrase, or simply listen, letting the words touch your heart. Lord God, in this moment of prayer, I come to you with an open heart and a willingness to hear your voice. Just like James, who left everything to follow Jesus, I also want to place my life in your hands. I know that I am not always courageous. I do not always know where to go, but I trust that you guide me in every step, in every choice, in every challenge. Lord, help me to face the fears, doubts, and insecurities that so often paralyze me. Give me the courage of James, the faith of James, the hope of James. May I, like him, trust in you, even when the path seems dark and uncertain. Lord, I place before you all my worries, my dreams, my projects, and my struggles. I know that nothing goes unnoticed before your eyes. Nothing is too small for you. Heal the wounds of my heart, restore my strength, renew my hope. Help me to be a better person, more loving, more welcoming, more generous. May I, like James, be an instrument of your love in the world, bringing hope, comfort, and joy to those in need. Lord, bless my family, my friends, all the people I love, and all those who are going through difficulties. May your love be present in every home, in every heart, in every life. Help us to overcome difficulties, to forgive those who have hurt us, to ask for forgiveness when we make mistakes. May your peace, which surpasses all understanding, guard our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Lord, just as James was faithful to the end, help me to remain firm in faith, even in the face of challenges. Grant me the grace to trust in you in all circumstances, to seek your will above all else, to love as Jesus loved. May I, like James, be a witness of your love, bringing the message of hope and salvation to everyone I meet. Lord, I thank you for this moment of prayer, for this encounter with you. I thank you for never abandoning me, for always loving me, for giving me the strength to start over. May I, every day, renew my faith, my hope, and my love for you. Amen. If you felt peace, comfort, or renewal in this moment of prayer, share this video with someone who also needs hope. By sharing, you strengthen our community, help others find comfort, and show that together we are stronger. Share now and be part of this current of love and hope. To deeply understand the life and legacy of the Apostle James, we need to turn our attention to the main biblical passage that records his martyrdom and his importance to the early church. The book of Acts of the Apostles in the New Testament recounts the earthly end of James, son of Zebedee, in a very direct and impactful verse, Acts 12:1-2, which says, "About that time Herod the king laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. He killed James, the brother of John, with the sword." These few words carry great historical and spiritual significance. The Herod mentioned is Herod Agrippa I, grandson of Herod the Great, who ruled Judea between the years 41 and 44 AD. His persecution of Christians was motivated by the desire to please the Jewish religious leaders, thus seeking to strengthen his own political power. James was chosen as a target because he was one of the most prominent leaders of the church in Jerusalem, recognized for his faith, courage, and influence among the disciples. James's death is narrated succinctly, but not for that reason less significant. He was killed by the sword, a quick and violent form of execution, a symbol of the hatred and religious intolerance faced by the first Christians. The biblical text does not describe the details of the martyrdom, but Christian tradition and the writings of the Church Fathers reinforce that James faced death with serenity and courage, not denying his faith in Jesus, even in the face of the threat of death. Analyzing this passage in light of Christian theology, we can draw profound lessons. First, the martyrdom of James reminds us that the Christian faith was never an easy path. From the beginning, the followers of Jesus faced persecution, suffering, and even death because of the gospel. James, as the first of the apostles to be martyred, became a symbol of faithfulness and surrender, showing that love for Christ is greater than the fear of death. Second, the passage of Acts 12. 1-2 teaches us about the importance of courage and perseverance in faith. James did not flee, did not deny Jesus, did not abandon his mission. He remained firm to the end, even knowing the consequences. This attitude inspires all Christians to remain steadfast in their convictions, even in the face of adversity, trusting that God is in control of all things. Another important point is the question of divine justice and the suffering of the righteous. Many people wonder why God allows the good to suffer, why people of faith are persecuted. The story of James shows us that suffering is not a sign of abandonment, but is often part of God's greater plan. Jesus himself suffered and died, but his death brought life and salvation to humanity. In the same way, James's martyrdom was not in vain. It strengthened the faith of the church, inspired others to remain firm, and showed the world the power of Christ's love. Christian tradition also reminds us that James, after his death, continued to be venerated as an example of holiness and courage. His memory is celebrated to this day, especially in Spain, where he is considered the patron saint and whose tomb in Santiago de Compostela attracts millions of pilgrims every year. This devotion shows how James's witness transcended time and space, inspiring generations of Christians to follow Jesus with the same love and surrender. By rereading Acts 12, 1-2, we are invited to reflect on our own commitment to faith. James teaches us that being a disciple of Jesus requires courage, faithfulness, and willingness to face the challenges of the path. We are not called to seek an easy life, but to live with integrity, love, and hope, even when the world persecutes or rejects us. If you have been touched by this reflection, leave a comment below, sharing what James' story means to you. By commenting, you strengthen our community, inspire others, and show that together we can face any challenge with faith and hope. Comment now and be part of this current of courage and unity. We have reached a very special moment in this video. The moment when we talk directly to you who are on the other side of the screen, sharing your journey, your doubts, your dreams, and your hopes. The story of the Apostle James, which we have just learned about together, is not just a story from the past, but an invitation for each of us to reflect on our own lives, our own calling, and our own commitment to God. Have you ever wondered what the purpose of your life is? Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, something is still missing? James's story shows us that God calls ordinary people to extraordinary missions. He does not seek perfection, but an open heart, a willingness to learn, and the courage to face challenges. James was a simple fisherman with fears, doubts, and limitations, but he became an example of faith, courage, and surrender because he decided to follow Jesus even when the path seemed uncertain. Just like James, you are also invited to trust God at every stage of your life. It doesn't matter if you have already made mistakes, doubted, or felt afraid. What matters is to keep walking, knowing that God is by your side, strengthening you, guiding you, and renewing you every day. James's life teaches us that faith is not the absence of difficulties, but the certainty that God is with us at every step, renewing our strength and leading us to a full life. You may ask, how can I follow in the footsteps of Jesus Christ in my daily life? The answer lies in the small gestures of love, welcome, and generosity. It is helping your neighbor, being supportive, forgiving those who have hurt you, seeking peace, being honest, being fair. It is trusting that even in the face of the greatest adversities, God has a plan for you, a greater purpose, a mission that only you can fulfill. You don't need to be an apostle, a missionary, or a religious leader to make a difference. Just be yourself with your qualities and limitations and place your life in God's hands. Like James, you can be an instrument of God's love in the world, bringing hope, comfort, and joy to those in need. You can be light where there is darkness, peace where there is conflict, love where there is hatred. James' story also reminds us of the importance of community. He did not walk alone. He had his brother John, Peter, the other disciples, and above all, Jesus by his side. In modern life, loneliness is one of the greatest challenges. Feeling part of a group, a family of faith, is essential for facing difficulties and celebrating achievements. You are not alone. Here on the Biblia Em Cause channel, you are part of a community that welcomes, strengthens, prays, and shares hope. If you are facing challenges, feeling alone, or seeking a new meaning for life, remember James's example. God does not look at who you are, but at who you can become with Him. His story can inspire you to face your fears, overcome your doubts, and trust in God's love, even in the face of the greatest adversities. Now, I invite you to subscribe to the Biblia Em Cause channel. By subscribing, you strengthen our community, receive messages of faith and hope, and become part of a group that believes in the power of prayer and love. Subscribe now and come walk with us on this journey of faith, welcome, and hope. The story of the Apostle James inspires us to seek courage, faith, and surrender in our journey. But it doesn't end here. Just like James, another great example of discipleship is the Apostle Andrew, brother of Simon Peter. Andrew was also called by Jesus on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, leaving his nets and his known life to follow the Master. He is remembered for his simplicity, his desire to bring people closer to Jesus, and his willingness to serve without seeking prominence. While James stood out for his courage and martyrdom, Andrew stood out for his humility and his mission to take the gospel to different peoples. Both, each in their own way, show that Jesus' call is unique for each person, but always with the same purpose: to love, to serve, and to proclaim the good news of the kingdom of God. If you were inspired by James's story, you will be enchanted by the journey of the Apostle Andrew, who also faced challenges, overcame fears, and left a legacy of faith and hope. In the next video on the Biblia Em Cause channel, we will dive into the life of Andrew, learning about his moments of glory, his struggles, and his mission to bring people closer to Jesus. Click on the card that appears now on the screen and join us on this new journey of faith. Follow the story of the Apostle Andrew and discover how you too can be an instrument of God's love in the world.
you.